sir. How are we doing?
Very good, very good. How are you?
Not too bad. Excited for another day in the kitchen. I really enjoyed last week.
Yeah, so did I. Chicken fajita day.
Yeah, I mean, the reason this is one of my requests to you, it just brings me back to a conversation that we had some time ago, where on paper, fajita sounds right up my street, really, because it's good source of protein with the chicken, and you've got the with the vegetables in there as well. But then it can quite quickly come corrupted with all of the additionals that go in there that boost the calories up. And I remember having a conversation with you where you were saying about how you cook yours completely from scratch. So it's stuck in my head for a while. So I'm quite excited to have a go with you.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a packet mix here, a fajita rub right here from one of the leading brands, and it's 50% carbohydrates, and out of every 100 grams, it's 50% of this is sugar. Things like that are those extra calories that just get snuck in something. You'll see today when we make fajitas, you do need a little bit of sugar in the rub, but I'm talking about a teaspoon in the whole rub.
Yeah.
For 3 or 4 people, there's 1 teaspoon. This is 50% carbohydrates and 33% sugars.
Yeah.
It must be nearly all flour, all sugar, or they use an anticoagulating agent to stop this sticking together in the packet, so it comes out looking really nice. Yeah. We're going to make our own, and it's going to look nice. It's not going to. We don't have to worry about what it looks like.
Yeah, I remember that conversation. I think I had that very pack, and I just couldn't believe quite how much sugar's going into that when you think.
Right, and the same goes for the salsa.
Absolutely.
Yeah. They put sugar in it to make the tomatoes taste really tomato. They put salt in it to make the tomatoes taste really tomatoey. Yeah. But of course, it then tastes too salty, so they put sugar in it to lift the salt flavour on. So you get increasingly sweet salsa. Yeah. Actually, salsa is made 90% of tomatoes anyway, which are sweet, and you just don't need any sugar in it. It just shouldn't have sugar in the salsa. There should be very little calories in the salsa and hardly any calories in a dry rub herb mix.
Well, I worked it out yesterday on the spreadsheet, looking at all the breakdown. It's quite unbelievable, really, that you can do all of that for next to no calories. Yet when you're buying it in bulk as a pack, so much more in there.
I don't even worry too much about the 10 grams of cheese or so that you have on a wrap. The one thing you need to be careful of if you're healthy eating and you're eating tortilla wraps is the tortilla wrap itself.
Yeah.
So quite often, Ruby in this house will always have lettuce leaves instead as her serving.
Yeah.
Which means that she doesn't use the actual wrap itself to make the fajita. And that is actually the piece with the most calories in as well. Some people like it, and there's nothing wrong with having a wrap if you've been working out or whatever. That's absolutely fine. But if you have to just eat the chicken, the salsa, the spices and everything else, you really are onto a healthy winner there.
Absolutely.
First things first out, we need to get some onions and peppers frying.
Right.
Only doing half an onion. Now, when you fry onions, you can use as much time as you've got. We've obviously only got a bit of time to do this recipe on the video, Al. Yep. If you were making fajitas for, say, 6:37 in the evening, you could put these onions and peppers on low at 2:33 in the afternoon, and they would be lots nicer. They'd start to go sweeter, like you get when you go out and you see someone selling burgers by the side of the road, and they've always got the best onions in the world. The reason why those onions are so nice is not because they've put nasty stuff on them, it's because they've cooked them all day. Yeah. They've just cooked them really slowly all day. So we'll get these on first. Now, when you're slicing an onion or fried onions, all you need to do is slice across it. So all I do is I take the top layer off.
I can't quite see your hands, Mike.
So I've taken the top layer of onion skin off, but I've cut the onion in half and I've left the end piece on. So I've just cut one edge off. And the reason for that is that the onion will hold itself together. Now, if some of the members want, I can do some quick videos on how to cut veg and we can put them up on the site. There's loads of techniques. But for this one, all I'm doing is I'm leaving the little husk on so that it all stays together. And then I'm just going to cut lengthways across it. because that way I'm going to get slices of half onion. And it's going to come apart and it's going to be like long strings of onion, which is going to eat better in the wrap. Put about a teaspoon of oil, of avocado I'm using, but you can use any light olive oil, any light sunflower oil, in a pan. And put the heat on medium because we haven't got unlimited time to cook these onions.
So medium for me is halfway.
Yeah, just over halfway if you're using gas. You've probably got a big flame and a small flame, Al.
Yeah.
So you want to be just over the small flame. So now that I've sliced my onions acrossways, they should all fall into little strands when you put them in the pan.
Half an onion for one person or too much?
Looking at it, I reckon that you probably need another half for doing it for two. I'm really making up those sizes, I don't know. When we do fajitas in our house, as anyone who knows me knows, we have to make so much that we do 2 pans of onions and 2 pans of peppers. But cooking for 1 and 2, you have to just get used to the amounts of what you'll need. I mean, the beauty of fajitas are they're quite a good sharing meal. And everyone gets to chat and have whatever they want. You know, people don't have the same thing in their wraps as each other. And so they're quite versatile for making a good family tea.
There we are. I'm like a proper chef.
Now, same thing with the pepper, which we're going to put in the same pan.
So does it matter how we chop these going top to bottom?
Yeah. So what I do is I put them face down and then I slide them over because I'm trying to get long, thin bits like that. I'm trying to get each side as one piece because I'm going to cut these down the length of that side. And so you're going to get little long strips, which I'll hold up to the camera in a minute. Yeah, so what I'm trying to do is get that sort of effect. So I've got one half there, but then I'm trying to slice it lengthways. Because with everything to do with this dish, you're going to end up putting it into a wrap, and so you want it to be long and thin. Right, I definitely need 3/4 of a pepper to go with my onions.
I'll do both of them, yeah, Mike? Both peppers.
Yeah. It's nice to have different colours in there as well. How you get?
Something like that?
Oh, perfecto, Dal. Perfecto. Nicely done.
All I need is a chef's hat now.
Yeah. So put those in the pan with the onions.
Yeah.
Make sure the onions get going.
Get the heat. What about that? I've only just put the heat on.
Put a little bit of salt in there, Al, and I'm talking about 1 pinch of salt in the top. Yeah. 2 or 3 grinds of that one's fine.
2 or 3 grinds.
Yep, that's enough. Right, just make sure they're sizzling away but not going mad. Now, as a point on salt out, a lot of people say when they go and eat at people's houses that cook all the time, that it tastes amazing when they're at someone else's house. Quite often, you are looking for the best quality salt you can buy. This Malden sea salt flakes are the best salt you can probably buy from a normal supermarket at a reasonable price. They become quite grainy, sort of salty flakes, and when you do a pinch of them, I tend to crush them in my fingers, but they will enhance flavour from much less salt. So they are not a bad idea for everyone to get. They're quite expensive. A box like that is $2.99 or $3.99, which is quite a lot for salt, but then it lasts 3 months. So
sounds good.
Right, onto the mix, Al. Onto the mix. Fajita mix. Now it's a whole load of spices, and we'll be giving the recipe out as normal. I've got a pestle and mortar to make mine in. It doesn't really matter if you haven't, you can just mix them up in a bowl. I'm using these little half measuring spoons, which I use to measure out the teaspoons and everything else. And so it's just a question of going down the ingredients list and putting it all in. So starting with a teaspoon of corn flour. Have you got my list there, Al?
Yep, corn flour.
Corn flour, you can use normal flour. Because it's only 1 teaspoon, it doesn't make a great deal of difference. Now, how hot's your chili powder, Al? It might say on it.
Chili powder, mild.
Okay, so you've got mild, so do the exact amount. If you had hot there, then you might want to scale it back, but mild is absolutely great.
So 2 tablespoons in this one.
Yeah, if you're using tablespoons, Al.
Sorry, teaspoons.
All the way through, yeah?
Sea salt.
Then you go on to the sea salt.
How many grinds of that do you reckon?
Keep going. Yeah, does that look about right on the top there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Smells nice already.
Yeah, paprika, which will make it smell nicer.
Couldn't believe last week the smell of that basil.
Yeah, it's lovely. That's when fresh herbs. We're using dry herbs this week, and that's because we're making a mix out of it. But when you're making something that's 100% flavoured of the herb, then you need it to be fresh herbs, and that's why that basil is so nice.
Okay, sugar.
Sugar. Then we're on to the half spoons. Half a spoon of the garlic powder.
Got the onions and garlic yet?
Yeah. These are great. Onion and garlic powder are great, and it's amazing how much you use them in cooking. They just add a little bit of flavour, and they're very easy to use. Now it's 1/4 of a spoon of the cayenne pepper.
Is that a hot one?
Now people get used to how much heat they like, but cayenne pepper is seriously hot. So unless you like it seriously hot, just put 1/4 in. Don't go more than that.
Okay.
How are those onions coming along now?
Yep, frying up nicely.
Nice. Give them a stir around. Right, so the herbs. Now, you didn't put any lemon and lime powder in, did you, Al?
No, I didn't find any of that.
No, it's really, really hard to find. I make my own, so if any one of the members wants to eat it, I'll tell them how to make it. It's a delicious thing, but to be honest, all it's doing here is adding some citric acid to this. So we're going to use half a lime in this recipe to make salsa. If we keep half a lime left over and put it on the table when people are eating, and if they just give it a little bit of a squeeze on top of their chicken and a few drops of juice go on there, it will do exactly the same thing anyway, which is just to lift it with a little bit of nice citrus flavour at the end. So you just don't need that powder if you don't want to. It doesn't make any difference. Once you've got all your powders in the bowl, I'm gonna pestle and mortar mine up just to make sure that everything's roughly the same size, but I'm sure it's fine. All of these powders are pretty good, so as long as you give them a good mix up, you're fine. It doesn't take too long anyway. So the next thing is to cut up the chicken now to prepare what we want. When you cut chicken up, you need to think about two things. One is, what size do you want the pieces to be at the end when you finish? And in this case, we want individual bites that are going to go through our fajitas perfectly. And the next thing is, you need to think about making all the pieces the same size so they cook evenly. Because when you cook chicken, you don't want to overcook bits of it and have some bits of it undercooked. Right, so I'm going to cut my chicken up into little cubes. Some people like to do strips, some people like to do whatever, but I like things to cook quickly and not overcook. I use a pair of scissors for cutting chicken now. I don't know about you.
Use scissors.
When you cut with a knife, it can be a pain in the butt. I mean, I'm lucky because I've got super sharp knives, but if you haven't got sharp knives, then using a pair of scissors is a massive advantage.
So you're going for cubes?
I'm going for little cubes, yeah. It cooked really fast that way. Because anyone who knows me knows when I cook, one of the things I don't like in cooking is when people overcook meat. They tend to overcook meat because they're worried about it being undercooked. But when you overcook meat, it becomes a real chore to eat. It isn't tasty, and it's actually quite simple to not overcook it, as we're about to find out when we cook these in a minute. They'll be perfect. And hopefully still juicy. Both Alan and myself are using chicken breasts here. You can use the dark meat of chicken, and a lot of people think it has a nicer flavour. If I was doing this for my family, I'd use half and half, but today I only had this in the kitchen, so I'm using this breast. They cook at roughly the same time when you are stir frying them. If you're roasting them in the oven, they cook at different times, so you need to be careful between dark and light meat.
When I've cooked these in the past, I've always done the chicken before the onions and peppers.
Right, so we're not going to do that, and we're going to try and make this so fresh that we can cook the chicken right at the end, and it will be still baking hot but still juicy. That's what we're going to try and achieve. that's probably enough for me. How many have you got, Al?
I've got 3 chicken breasts.
Okay.
Maybe 2's enough, I think.
I don't know. I think that if you're working out a lot and you're doing exercise, chicken's a pretty healthy meat to eat. And to get some protein in, it's not a bad way of doing it. I wouldn't go mad and have 5 tortilla wraps, but going mad and having a fair bit of chicken is absolutely fine.
I'm going to go for the lettuce today.
Yeah, exactly. In that case, you're just eating well, healthily cooked chicken with flavour, and then onions, and then salsa. It's all just fine.
Yeah. Come on.
Right. So when we're done, making sure all your pieces are about the same size now, so that we can cook them at the same time. Yeah.
Yep. Right, done.
Done. So now the secret is to have a handy, already prepared, food-safe bag in your kitchen, which fortunately I briefed you about before, so we have got one. I put the chicken into the bag. And the reason for doing this is because what you want to do is you want to coat the chicken with the spices that we've already made. And it's quite difficult to do that so that they all get covered evenly unless you can get your hands in and massage it. So I put the chicken into a bag. And then pour the spice mix into the bag as well. Good idea on the stirring of the onions now. How do they look?
Yeah, it's starting to brown now.
Yeah. Right. Pour the spices into the bag with the chicken in now.
Yep, it's done.
And then give your hands a wash because we won't touch the raw chicken again now. You should always really get a new chopping board and a new knife because we're going to prepare a salad afterwards. You can, if you're at home, flip your chopping board over, but you can't flip your chopping board over if you work in any form of catering. You need a new board. Right, so the idea is to massage the spices into the chicken breast, but through the edge of the bag. And you can, by just tossing it around, get it really well coated, and make a small amount of mix go quite a long way. How does yours look out?
Get in there.
Get in there, nice one, nice one. Good skills there, Al. How's that looking?
See that?
Perfect. Now, if you had enough time, you would prepare this chicken at, say, lunchtime, and you would leave it in the fridge, in the bag, while for the whole afternoon, and 4 hours or more would make that chicken even more tasty. Obviously, for today, we're going to just leave that not in the fridge on the side while we prepare the salsa, because we're going to cook the chicken. But if you had time, you'd prepare this earlier. You can prepare this up to a day earlier, but it would obviously need to be in the fridge. Right, so now we're going to make our salsa.
We're just leaving these onions on all this time, yeah? Just keep...
Yeah, you can turn them right down low now, Al. Turn them down to the lowest your hob will go, give them a stir, and they'll just get nicer and nicer as they go. Right, so salsa making. When you're making a salsa, again, you need to think about the size of the pieces that will go into your mouth when you have your wrap. And so for that, you need quite small little, I'd say, I'd go for a centimetre squared style of chop. So for the onions, the tomatoes, and everything, we're going to do that sort of style. Obviously, for doing the coriander, it doesn't matter what size you chop it up, the smaller the better. Now, I'm going to probably do 4 tomatoes, but I haven't checked and seen what they look like. But are you doing 6, Al?
I've got six big ones.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Half a bunch of the coriander.
Half a bunch of the coriander. Half a red onion, which I will show you a method for doing the finely chopped, so that it works out all right on. When you're chopping the tomatoes, it doesn't matter too much because they're quite easy to chop, and we're going to go for the sort of cubed effect. With all these things, I don't think it pays to be too OCD. I think you can just get on with it.
So you're looking for little squares of those?
Yeah. Just little cubes about a centimetre wide will be perfect. No, it's not very sharp. doesn't really matter how much salsa you make, it will last for a week. And if you keep it in an airtight, sterilised container in your fridge, you'll be able to use it for anything, because obviously a nice salsa goes well with so many things that it's just a nice thing to have in your fridge. Likewise, the fajita mix, if you wanted to make a big batch of that and then put it into a jar or a Tupperware and keep it in your spice cupboard, it will last ages.
Makes sense.
And so if you are actually grinding up herbs and doing all that sort of stuff, which I do for the fajita mix, then you can just do a whole big batch at once. Because I've actually got a little machine that grinds everything down if you need it to. So, but don't buy this sort of stuff. You can use a blender just as easily. You don't need to purchase special things for it.
Same thing in the salsa that we were discussing earlier, Mike, is that if you buy it in a pack, it comes with a lot of sugar.
Yeah. It comes with a lot of ingredients that you might not understand, which is my golden rule. It comes with things like emulsifiers. It also comes with things that make it last a very long time. So all of those preservatives, they're just not natural. They're created in a science lab. So you just don't get as nice a flavour as if you make it yourself.
Always say, if you can't pronounce it, don't eat it.
If you don't know what it is, don't eat it. I don't know what half of the things in salsa are. So.
It's not saying at the start was that on paper, fajitas sound really healthy. It's single ingredient foods, all natural, but you only have to look at the packs of the stuff that go into it. You're getting things that you didn't know.
Yeah, you are absolutely getting things you don't know. Things that are basically meant to preserve the life and keep the cost down for the same amount of flavour.
The good thing about doing this is that we know every single thing that's gone into it.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And it's one of those things you can control your own budget. If you buy the most expensive tomatoes you can, it will taste slightly nicer. But if you haven't got the budget for that sort of thing, it will taste delicious with a normal tomato. You can control how much you go for completely crazy ingredients like an expensive onions, or you can just go to Sainsbury's, go straight down to the first aisle, put everything in there, and it'll just taste fantastic anyway.
Had a bit of an adventure yesterday because went to Sainsbury's where I normally shop at. The queue was obscene, so I went to Tesco's. It was a bit of a gamble really because I didn't know where anything was, so I had to buy probably 50
Tesco's in Bulldog. I can't find anything in there.
I mean, whilst I didn't know what some of these things were, I had a pretty good idea of where they should be.
Yes.
But I couldn't. It's not the same in Tesco. Walking around, good hour shopping. So onions next.
Yeah, so we'll do half a red onion. Now, the secret of cutting an onion, it's going to be quite hard to see this, but you start again with the same method as last time. So I've got half an onion, which has still got the husk on, keeping it all together. I've cut off the top, and then I've just peeled it so that I've got half a red onion. And the reason you do that when you're cutting with onions is because this little husk piece, which is half, is going to hold the whole onion together while I cut it. And I pretty much do that with every piece of onion. I start by cutting it in half so that I halve the husk for each half, and then cut the top off because that's just not that nice to eat, and then peel it, and you're left with you're left with something you can work with. I'll try and position this right in the middle. When you cut an onion, is that peeled, that onion now?
Take one layer off.
Yeah, it depends on your onion, but yes, make sure it just looks delicious. But remember, we're eating this raw, so you want to have it absolutely all of it wants to look delicious.
How's that look?
Yeah, that's perfect. Cut that top off. leaving the bottom on.
That's the top, is it?
Yeah, cut that piece off. Don't cut the other end off because it will hold it all together, the other end. So what I do now, Al, is I come across and I cut my across way. So if you look at my knife, I'm going to cut down into here.
Yeah.
I'm never going to go all the way through. So I'll do the cuts and then I'll hold it up and show you. And because we're doing a small dice, these need to be close together. I'll hold it up and show you what I've done. So I've cut it across there. You see the knife going in. I've cut lots of slices that are about 1 millimetre wide, but I haven't gone all the way through the other end. So the base of the onion is still intact, but all this end is frayed out.
Okay. What can go wrong?
Nothing can go wrong, Al, except you can go all the way through and cut it in half, which could happen.
Right.
Yep. And so now you take that onion and you're going to cut it the other way across in 1 millimetre strips going away. So if you look at that, wait till I've done mine, but there's my onion, which I'm holding together, because otherwise it'll all fray out. But I hold it back together, and I'm going to cut down from the top to the back in centimetre strips. It's going to cube the onion. When you get near the end and it all gets floppy, you can flip it over, which you'll see on the video, and you can actually get a few more good cuts before it all gets messy. And that way you can dice an onion really fine, really quickly.
I've often tried to do that, but by holding it together. So
yes,
that you've had the little head, or the fingernail in my case, holds it together. So now they should be cubes.
Right, my salsa bowl's not big enough, so I'm just switching bowls. So that onion goes in with the tomato. We're going to give that a good mix up, so it doesn't really matter how it looks in the bowl right now. 1 small clove of garlic, very finely chopped. Now I have to admit, Al, I don't chop much garlic myself these days. I use a microplaner like this.
Yeah.
If you haven't got a microplaner, you can use a garlic car. And if you haven't got a garlic car or a garlic crusher, then you can just use the back of the knife to smash it up and then finely chop it. But I have to say, I use the microplane method. Just easier.
I've got a cheese grater.
Yeah, the finest on the cheese grater would work it.
So you said I just need 1 of these little cubes, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely right. 1 clove. Because we're eating this raw, when you don't cook garlic, it's very strong.
Did you say yes to the cheese grater?
Yeah, you can use anything. You can use anything you like. I mean, the other way of doing it is actually just to crush it with the back of a knife and chop it up small.
Yeah, that sounds more destructive. It doesn't seem to be much of that. Should I do another one?
No, I wouldn't do. I wouldn't go mad. It'll be very strong. That'll be fine once it gets mixed through. I mean, ideally, again, it would have time to settle down this salsa, but it'll be so tasty as it is. The tomato should keep it so moist that you don't actually need any oil in there or any dressing. We're going to put a splash of white wine vinegar in, but that's all. A little bit of lime juice to make it a little bit more acidic. Have you chopped up the coriander, Al?
Yeah.
Is that in there? Yeah. Are you putting chili in it?
Yeah, I'll put chili in there. Same thing, tiny cubes.
Yeah, tiny little cubes. Now the question of chili is just always down to personal taste. And if you put seeds in, it will be hotter. And if you put hotter, you can buy hot chilies, you can buy not hot chilies. I tend to use the bog standard red chilies and then chop as much in as I'm used to, or as if the kids are going to eat it, I put less in there.
So just give that a stir.
Yeah, give that a big stir up. Try and, basically, you don't want all the chili to be in the same place. Nicely done out. Sorry, I left the fridge open. Ignoring, how much of the white wine vinegar have you got? What's the splash? What splash do we have? I think a splash, I'll put my bowl in the middle. I think a splash is literally...
More like a teaspoon.
It's definitely less than a tablespoon.
Smells nice.
Yep, and now we just need to add half a lime. When you're going to juice a lime, roll it round with a bit of downward pressure on your work surface first, as I'm doing now. If you do that, it will juice better when you cut it in half.
Cut. Which way through, does it matter?
No, it doesn't matter. I go across because I just find it easier to juice. What you're trying not to do is you're trying not to get any pips in the salsa. Now, there shouldn't be any pips in a baby lime. There should be hardly any. But just make sure that none go in there, and if they do, pick them out. Because that will be a nasty surprise for someone.
And then just give that a squeeze over the top.
It'll just freshen it up.
So squeeze the lime in, Mike, yeah?
Yeah. Save your other half a lime, and you can put it on the fajitas at the end as well if you want. But this salad, you can taste this salsa now. I have to say, actually, I just tasted mine, and mine's really nice today. Sometimes it's different, and sometimes it's not, and you learn that all the different vegetables decide what the quality is like.
Certainly smells fresh.
Well, coriander is a very, very important ingredient when cooking. People have a love-hate relationship with it. Some people just really don't like it. It makes such a difference to the flavour of tomatoes and things like that. Taste out.
Very nice.
Right, so that's it now. We're up to assemble time, so we're just going to cook the chicken. And then we're going to make a wrap. So we need a couple of, 1 tablespoon, probably for you, Al, 2 tablespoons of avocado or olive oil in the pan. Now, are you using a different pan completely from the onions? You have to. But if you are doing so, you should probably transfer the onions to a bowl now, Al.
Right, so use a different pan if you think it's better.
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter. I use a different pan, but I've got a lot of pans. If you don't have a lot of pans, then you can use the same one. That's fine. Now, I see you're using the fry light spray.
Yeah, is that right?
There's nothing wrong with that, but just make sure you get the single oil for fry lights.
Yeah, sunflower.
1 type of oil whenever you buy it. I'll just carry on eating salsa. Oh no. Right, the secret of cooking chicken, number 1, is to get the pan hot before you start. Do not be putting meat into cold pans.
Why is that?
Because it will stew the meat. So as the pan heats up, the chicken in it, you've put the chicken. I'm assuming you've put the chicken in first into a cold pan. As you heat the pan up, the meat will heat up slowly. It will be like a mini. For that time, it will be like a mini slow cook, and you'll effectively be stewing it. And you'll see what happens is you start to get a lot of water and moisture in the bottom of the pan that you then have to boil off before you can start cooking the chicken. In that time, when it boils off, you'll still be stewing the chicken. And so you won't get that. When you fry chicken in a pan, what you're trying to do is cooking it quickly at a temperature that's hotter than 100 degrees. If you have water in the pan, it will only ever be 100 degrees because water boils at 100. And it won't be able to go up past 100 until all the water's gone. So if we start with a hot pan and we don't put too much chicken in there in one go, we should get ourselves a nice even fry that should take not very long at all, especially if we both cut up small pieces. One of the things I'm going to teach you is while we're cooking this chicken, I'm going to take whenever I think it's getting ready to be done, I'm going to take the biggest piece of chicken out the pan that I can see with my own eyes, and I'm going to cut it in half on a chopping board and check it's cooked all the way through. And if it's not, I'm going to put both halves back in. So I'm going to keep doing that so that when we see it's fully cooked all the way through, we can stop cooking. Because we don't want to overcook this so that it's dry and it's tough and it becomes a lot harder to eat. And the secret for that is to make sure the biggest piece you can see is cooked. Because if the biggest piece is cooked, the other pieces will be cooked.
Makes sense.
Now my pan and your pan, actually, because you're cooking on gas, gets hot very quickly. If someone's cooking on electricity at home, they need to preheat their pan for longer. Now, all of my chicken can fit in my pan in one go because I'm doing a smaller amount. What do you think, Al, for yours?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Cool.
Are we going in?
Yeah, absolutely. And with cubed chicken, you want to move it round when you put it in the pan.
It even smells like the fajita mix.
Sorry?
So it smells just like the fajita mix.
Yeah. It's got that nice cumin and a nice paprika flavour to it, the smell to it. Right, now you want to turn your pan down just slightly off the max, Al. Just slightly off the max.
Yep.
Still hot, still hot. How's it looking out?
Yep. Looking good?
Starting to lighten up.
Yep.
Right, how are you getting on now?
Yeah, lightening.
Let's have a little look.
How long do you think it should take?
I don't know, not as long as people think. My chicken was definitely at room temperature before I put it in. How long was yours out of the fridge for, Al?
No, not long at all.
It's always good to get meat up to the room temperature before you cook it, because that way you can get it cooked without having to spend too long cooking it. Because it's all about preserving the moisture content that's in the meat.
Yeah.
Now I went for slightly smaller cubes, so I can actually have a look at cutting one of mine in half. And you can just see, I doubt you can see, but I'll hold that up. Mine is not yet cooked. Mine is a translucent square just in the middle of it.
Yeah.
A sort of see-through bit of chicken. That means mine needs about 2 more minutes, I'd guess. But I'm going to cut another one in half in a minute. Don't worry about that. We all know about the dangers of eating uncooked chicken, but it's not as high as people think as long as you buy your chicken from a nice supermarket. But we don't want to eat uncooked chicken, so we're going to make sure this is cooked perfectly. Right, let me take off one block now and see whether it's actually finished. So I literally just cut the piece in half, the biggest piece I can find, and then it's pure white in the middle and still juicy. Let me just hold that a little bit lower. I'm telling you now, anyone who's ever had the fajitas from the packet mix they bought before, I'm gonna think these ones are delicious. Just making it yourself, you just get a nicer flavour on the chicken.
Smells great.
Mine's actually quite spicy, my mix out, so I hope yours isn't too spicy for you. Anyone making this at home, if it comes out too spicy, you need to reduce the level of cayenne pepper. Right, how's yours looking out?
Yeah, I'll give one a shot.
Let's have a look at yours.
Well, you can see that. Can you see that?
Oh, it's looking great. Have you cut one of the big ones in half out?
No, it's coming.
Lift one out and cut it in half.
Very nearly.
Yeah, cool.
Another minute, I reckon. It's quite satisfying knowing that you've cooked everything from.
Yeah, it's excellent, isn't it? It is good.
Yeah, because when you rip open that packet of salsa mix and you sprinkle it all over, my heart always sinks a little bit to just think, no idea what's really in here.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to say, having eaten one of my cubes of chicken, I think that'd be too hot for people with families, and you need to scale back that cayenne pepper.
Right, think on that.
Right, anyone looking at the video will now see I've created my little assembly line for making a fajita pancake.
That's the softest I've ever had a chicken. So soft. I think normally, like you say, I think I've probably been a bit worried about the things fully cooked, so you end up overcooking it.
Yeah, which is you are doing there, Al, what so many people in England do, which is we get worried about undercooking chicken, and so we overcook it. Number one, we buy our chicken from good supermarkets. If you were to, by accident, eat a piece of raw chicken, you probably wouldn't have any harm come to you anyway. Number two, you're going to cook it in a pan, and then you're going to cut the biggest one in half, look inside it, and if that's cooked, all the others are probably cooked if you've mixed it well. Number three, when you take something off the heat and put it into a bowl, like I put my chicken into this bowl here. You've only got to feel the bottom of this bowl now to feel how hot this is.
Yeah.
Chicken is still cooking now, and it was already cooked when we took it off the pan. So you're getting more and more safe as you go along, and it was already safe chicken when you bought it. I mean, obviously don't eat out-of-date chicken, and obviously don't eat raw chicken. That would be complete madness. But as long as you cook it till it's all the way through white, then it will carry on cooking for a few minutes and it'll all be absolutely fine. People need to start trusting themselves. If they have cooked something, it is cooked.
Yeah. Oh, the difference just now, that bit I just tasted there was just so soft. Suction.
Yes, absolutely. It's so what you need is to cook meat nicely. Right, so it's assemble the pancake time. Now, what do you do with yours, Al? I mean, I personally don't go for the sour cream.
No, nor do I.
But some people do go for the sour cream.
I'm going to try a lettuce leaf today for the first time ever.
Right, so you're going for the outside lettuce leaf, Al. It can go a bit wrong, this, but Ruby and myself have perfected this. I'll have a go.
I do have the pancake ones, so I've just opted for a.
Yeah. I'm going to go for a pancake one, but I'll show you how to do this. When you get your lettuce, you want these big outer leaves, but probably not the actual outer leaf because that's probably dirty. You take the outer leaf off, and then you find where the next leaf is connected to the stalk, and you cut it off at the base. And then when you cut it off at the base, the next leaf should lift off pretty much whole if you can put it off. I'm glad that worked when I was actually doing it. When you've got your leaf, you just basically form a pocket out of it with all the ingredients as you would do a normal tortilla, and then you fold it up into the wrap like that, and it will actually just hold the food and you can eat it. A lot of countries eat out of food already done. You know, the Moroccans and the Tunisians, they will quite often make a cabbage leaf or a lettuce leaf as the actual parcel for how they eat.
Did you say you cut that somewhere?
Yeah, so you can see at the bottom which leaf is going to come out next. And you can follow the top leaf round and you can see which place that's connected.
Okay. Yeah.
And then you just cut through that one gently, and so it will help it all lift off in one go, hopefully. We will do it. You can get quite good at this. Ruby's only been doing this during the lockdown because she's been on a healthy eating drive, and she's mastered the lettuce leaf tortilla.
I'll have a go with both. We just had a conversation yesterday, Mike, where we were talking about the calorie content of the wraps. That's one of the ways that it really does boost up the calories.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. If you have these lettuce leaf wraps, you are into a very, very healthy lunch because you're getting quite a lot of vegetables, quite a lot of tomatoes, some well-cooked chicken and some spices, and a bit of onion and pepper. You're not really eating anything that's bad for you there.
How about that? It's like a little bowl.
Yes, that's the one, Al. That's the one. So I personally don't go for the sour cream, but of course any of the members are entitled to go for the sour cream. Just don't go mad with it. It's not calorie free. It isn't the worst of proteins, but don't go mad with it. I go for a bit of the meat, a bit of the salsa, a couple of onions and peppers. And I go for about, we were talking about this yesterday, Al. I think I go for 10 grams of cheese. I think that's what I'm having each time. So for anyone who's calorie counting or doing any tracking system or looking at their macros, what I've put on my pancake there, which I can hold up to make it a little bit nearer, I weighed that this morning. That is actually 10 grams that I put on there. So I actually weighed it because we were doing this video. So
I was talking about this on the video. I don't know if you saw it, Mike, about calories. Just a bit of an introduction.
I did see that. Yeah.
The macronutrients, but it's things like cheese. You might not necessarily realise just how calorie dense they are. So it's not something you can't have cheese, but it's one of those things that's very tasty, but also very calorie dense as well. So it should be used to add a little bit of flavour without going too mad.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It provides great flavour, and we used it in last week's recipe, but it was a very small amount there in that.
Oh, I got confused there. I've done a double chicken rather than chicken and salsa. You put the salsa in there as well, have you, Mike?
Right. I'll put the salsa in there.
Yeah.
I'll hold that up because I have mastered the rolling up of wraps over time. Whereas in our house, some people just smash it all together and just eat it or whatever. It doesn't matter how you make your wraps; they taste nice at the end of the day.
Right.
Righty. So when you're doing the lettuce one, Al, you want to try and get a bit of a roll over. So you probably want to fold the two ends in on that one before you roll it over. I can't. Yes, like that. Before you roll it in on itself.
Okay.
So you get a little parcel together.
Parcel.
Yeah.
Right.
Not bad, Al, for your first lettuce one. It took Ruby a long time to get better than that.
Right. Let's have a go.
That is delicious, actually.
Oh, the chicken's so soft. Keep saying it.
Yeah.
Massive difference.
It makes such a difference if the protein you're eating is easy to eat in the mouth.
Wow, yeah, that's lovely.
I've made it a little mini life mission of mine to stop English people overcooking meat. There's lots of techniques that we can learn in this series, but using your eyes to test whether chicken is cooked is the best way.
What's a good tip of what you said about using the biggest one? Look at the biggest one and see whether that's cooked.
Yeah, always check the biggest one. That's tasty, Al.
It's really good. Very good job.
Very good job, Al.
So you always think get the meat at room temperature as well. It's a bit easier.
Oh, always have your meat at room temperature before you cook.
Because that's something that I never do. I mean, sometimes worst case scenario, it gets defrosted in the microwave and then it gets cooked with. But you know, it doesn't taste like this.
No, it's nice. This. I would say I'll eat the rest of mine for lunch, but there are children in my house that are going to come past and smash this in seconds. I'm going to get nothing.
They must love having a chef at home.
They've loved the lockdown food. I have to say that they've been smashing the lockdown food. Oops.
It's a bit more messy with the lettuce leaf, but in actual fact, it's you get so much more of the chicken and the stuff that you actually, from the fajitas, the stuff that you actually like the taste of. It's not really about the wrap, is it? You know, you use the wrap to hold it all together.
Absolutely. I mean, Casey, when Casey has hers, she puts one small wrap on the plate because she quite likes it. Then she puts all of her chicken, onions, salsa, and everything on the top of the wrap as a massive pile, and then just a knife and fork to eat it. So she effectively has 2 fajitas in one go, but with only one wrap. And then you can have a lot more chicken, you can have a lot more things, even if you are still watching your calories.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't want this all to be about, you know, not everybody is on a weight loss mission.
Exactly.
This is about, you know, understanding what calories are and understanding that, you know, calories aren't free. You know, you take calories and you expend them, and you should be mindful about that. But it's not about giving everybody a diet. This is about getting people to understand, you know, the benefits of cooking with real foods fresh, bringing them all together, getting the flavors in there, you know, without putting needless calories in there, because then you can save those calories for other things that you really do appreciate, whether that's, you know, wine or a beer or something else. You know, things like cheese, you might think maybe you're a cheese lover, but maybe you're not that bothered. So just that's 10 grams there, and I've grated a little bit into that for a bit of flavour. You just think it's better, I think personally, to use your cheat calories for, you know, things that you really do.
Absolutely right.
Stuff.
Absolutely right.
Superb, mate.
Cheers, mate.
Getting good at this, aren't we?
Getting good at that.
Cook by name, cook by nature.
Exactly.
Top man. So next Monday?
Yeah, of course, absolutely.
See you then.
Nice one. See you later.
Thank you.